Hey everybody, welcome back to Omens. I'm your host Ryan, AM air pronouns, and this is episode 49, which is one away from 50, which 50 amuses me greatly because we'll be talking about the devil, and I don't know why it's hilarious to me, but it is. Alright, but today we're talking about Venus, the planet Venus, Iris, and Rhodochrosite. I hope everybody's having an manageable holiday season this December, no matter whether you're southern or northern hemisphere, whether it's boiling hot or freezing cold or somewhere in between. I hope it's at least manageable or even amazing. Hopefully it's amazing. Alright, but anyway, and if it's not, I hope it gets better and things calm down and you can do better things after the holiday season and get away from any crazy stuff. Alright. So, but anyway, hopefully this is a bit of an escape from that. We're talking about Venus, like I said, so diving into the science before we get to the fun metaphysical stuff. Venus is the second planet from the Sun. It is one of 4 terrestrial planets in our solar system, the others being Mercury, Earth, and Mars. It's nicknamed the Earth's sister or twin planet due to their similar size, mass, and bulk composition, and sun proximity. We're both pretty close to each other. Venus is actually one of our closest neighboring planets. That's why we see Venus so clearly in the night and daytime sky. It's only about 638 kilometers less than the diameter of Earth, so we're very, very close in size. The atmosphere in Venus is about 96.5% carbon dioxide, which I'm sure that's lovely. That would be lovely for plants, except for the rest of the problems of Venus. So, yeah, we'll get to that. So the rest of the atmosphere, which is about 3.5%, is mostly nitrogen with trace amounts of sulfur dioxide and other trace gases, which are, I guess, multitude and tiny, so they didn't even bother writing them out. The surface temperature above the critical points of both major constituents, which basically the major parts of Venus, which if I remember correctly is constituents are the points like around the equator or the biggest terrestrial areas. Venus doesn't actually really have continents per se, but it's got big land masses that are quote continents, except for Venus doesn't have tectonic plates like Earth does, so it's the biggest points of Venus, the surface temperature is 737 Kelvin, 464 degrees Celsius, and 867 degrees Fahrenheit, so no plants are living there, sorry. But that temperature makes the surface atmosphere, like the atmosphere that is right at the surface, not the high above or down on the ground, but the atmosphere itself, the air. It makes it a supercritical fluid, which, I'm sorry, air, fluid, what? Basically, it's above the critical point where distinct liquid and gas phases don't exist, but below the pressure needed to press it into a solid form. So it's still the atmosphere, but it's damn near liquid, basically. You can't tell whether it's gas or liquid, but it's not a solid surface, so it's still in the atmosphere. But yeah, that's kind of scary. It's that hot. So the mass of Venus is also 92 times that of Earth's, and the surface pressure is 93 times that of Earth's, that's a lot more. It's approximately 1 kilometer below ocean surface. So at the surface of Venus is basically what it feels like to be 1 kilometer below the ocean surface on Earth, is what that's saying. Which, whew, that's heavy. Alright, so the next part of this atmosphere is the other reason we don't really get in. So thick clouds of sulfuric acid. So on Earth, our clouds are made of water, mostly. on Venus, they're mostly made of sulfuric acid. No, thank you. Um, because the clouds are so thick, they reflect most of the sunlight that comes in, which means it really doesn't get much sunlight at all, so it's fairly dark on Venus. I mean, there's still light, but not very bright. However, that doesn't stop it from being very hot because the CO2 rich air, remember, 96.5% carbon dioxide. CO2 rich air means that Venus has the largest greenhouse gas effect in the solar system. So all the heat that's there is staying there. It's not going anywhere. It can't really collect anymore because the sulfuric acid clouds keep most of it out, but everything that's there is boiling point. And beyond boiling point, it's 867 degrees Fahrenheit. And for those in Celsius areas, 464 degrees Celsius. You're gonna melt quickly. In fact, it actually took a very long time for us to get robots or probes up on Venus because the first few that were sent there melted before they even touched down. Just breaking through the atmosphere, they melted. We finally actually, the most recent one, I believe, possibly not, finally actually managed to touch down on the surface and survive for about 8 minutes, I want to say. Somewhere around that amount of time. Like, took pictures, sent them back to Earth, and then melted. We don't have robots on Venus because they melt fast. Yeah. So thanks to that, it's hotter even than Mercury, despite being farther away from the sun. Despite being 2 times farther than the sun, it's hotter than Mercury, and only receiving 25% of the amount of solar irradiance that Mercury gets. So Mercury's 100% solar irradiance, only 25% of that gets to Venus, and it's 2 times farther away than the sun, but it's hotter. It is, I believe I have it in here, screenshots. So I got a little bit more on the atmosphere here. So above the dense carbon dioxide layer are thick clouds consisting mainly of sulfuric acid, which is formed by sulfur dioxide and water through a chemical reaction resulting in sulfuric acid hydrate, blah, blah, blah. Additionally, the atmosphere consists of approximately 1% ferric chloride. Other possible constituents of the cloud particles are ferric sulfate, aluminum chloride, and phosphoric anhydride. Clouds at different levels have different compositions and particle size distributions. These clouds reflect and scatter about 90% of the sunlight that falls on them back into space and prevent visual observation of Venus's surface. So, heavy-duty covered cloud. This is from Wikipedia, by the way. The permanent cloud cover means that although Venus is closer to the Earth than Earth to the Sun, it receives less sunlight on the ground. So we get more sunlight than Venus. It receives less strong 300 km an hour or 185 miles per hour winds at the cloud tops go around Venus about every 4 to 5 Earth days. Winds on Venus move at up to 60 times the speed of its rotation, whereas Earth's fastest winds are only 10 to 20% rotation speed. That's fast. But Venus doesn't actually rotate very fast either. The surface of Venus is effectively isothermal. It retains a constant temperature not only between the 2 hemispheres, but between the equator and the poles. Whoops. I did that in the wrong direction. I did the second one before the first one, but yeah, you can read them out of order. So a little bit more history on the atmosphere. So studies have suggested that billions of years ago, Venus's atmosphere could have been much more like the one surrounding the early Earth, and that there may have been substantial quantities of liquid water on the surface. After a period of 600 million to several billion years, solar forcing from rising luminosity of the sun caused evaporation of the original water, because it's so close to the sun. A runaway greenhouse effect was created once a critical level of greenhouse gases, including water, was added to its atmosphere. And although surface conditions on Venus are no longer hospitable to any Earth-like life that may have formed before this event, there is speculation on the possibility that life exists in the upper cloud layers of Venus, about 50 kilometers up from the surface, or 30 miles up from the surface, where the temperature ranges between 303 or 353 Kelvin, 30 and 80 degrees Celsius, 86 and 176 degrees Fahrenheit, but the environment is acidic. The putative detection of phosphine in Venus's atmosphere with no known pathway for abiotic production led to speculation in September 2020 that there could be extant life currently present in the atmosphere. Later research, not yet peer-reviewed, attributed this spectroscopic signal that was interpreted as phosphine to sulfur dioxide. So phosphines, I was listening to a TED Talk on them. Particularly on Venus, I believe it was the TED Talk. But anyway, particularly about phosphines found in Venus's atmosphere is like phosphines are only created by life as we know it. I don't remember all the details and specifics, but basically it was like the only way they could exist is if there was life. And then another study is like, yeah, but that might actually be sulfuric acid you were detecting, not phosphines. We don't know. But anyway, so that's some interesting stuff about the atmosphere of Venus, which is freaking heavy duty. So that's the atmosphere, which is fascinating in and of itself, especially since next to the ground it's damn near liquid. That's freaky. The surface of Venus, the 80% of it is covered by smooth volcanic plains. There's like 80% of it is all volcanoes, basically. There's different types of volcanic plains, but I wasn't going to go into all that, even though I got into a lot of detail on this. So so there's two continents, quote. The first one, the one in the northern hemisphere, is known as Ishtar Terra, which is named after Ishtar, the Babylonian goddess of love, war, and romance and sex, who, as far as mythological studies can date, is possibly an inspiration for Aphrodite or Venus. The southern continent, which is south of the equator, is known as Aphrodite Terra. So again, basically they're all love goddesses that follow a similar pattern and more than likely preceded one after the other that led up to the Roman Venus, Greek Aphrodite, Babylonian Ishtar. There's also Inanna, but I don't think they got a name for that on here. Or probably they do, I just didn't go find it. So most of Venus has been shaped by volcanoes, so we've got not only the sun heating it up from the atmosphere, which created that, but also there were volcanoes everywhere. The water evaporated, created this lovely CO2-rich atmosphere, which blocks all the sunlight, but now everything is just surrounded in heat. Yeah, it's hot there. So Venus orbits the sun at an average of 0.72 astronomical units, which I hadn't heard of until now, which is about 108 million kilometers or 67 million miles. So it goes around the sun pretty fast. It completes an orbit every 224.7 Earth days, I believe. Yeah. Its orbit is the closest to circular, with only a 0.01 variance. It most likely was much more elliptical in the past, which impacted its climate evolution. There's studies have shown that it might have been like a very elliptical variant, and it slowly has slowed down and become almost completely circular orbit, which is why it sticks so close to the sun in our sky, up and down, because it is pretty much almost an exact circle, whereas like Mercury is a hugely elliptical orbit, which puts it really fast and far and then slows it down and then really fast. Yeah. So Mercury is hugely elliptical. Earth has a pretty elliptical orbit. Venus has an almost circular orbit, which means whereas our elliptical orbit is what gives us seasons, that's another reason why Venus doesn't have seasons, besides the fact that it's on fire. Okay, it's not. It might be on fire. I don't think it's actually on fire. It's just fucking hot. um, Venus actually rotates clockwise, so the sun rises in the west and sets in the east. So basically, now that sounds counterintuitive to say it rotates clockwise, but if you think about it, clockwise for us is the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. And the reason it does that is because we are circling the opposite, we're rotating the opposite direction. So when Venus rotates clockwise, it means, oh hey, the sun's here, whoop, and it's setting, and it's rising. It basically, or something like that. So I'm not being able to visualize that very well. All right, so anyway, moving on. It is actually the slowest of any planet's rotation. It takes about 243 Earth days to rotate. Wait. I wrote this weird. Okay, Venus rotates clockwise, and it's the slowest of any planet. Okay, so its rotation is actually so slow, it takes about 243 Earth days. I don't remember that. Which, because it rotates so slow, it takes about 243 Earth days to make a full rotation. That's what it was. Which puts it at a near spherical shape. It's like, so not only does it have almost an exactly circular rotation or orbit, it also it's almost exactly a sphere as well because it's so slow. Which, I mean, if you thought the Earth was a sphere, no, it's not. It's more like an egg. Sorry. It's going to hatch soon. All right. The sidereal day is longer than the year, and I can't understand their thing about sidereal versus synodic days. No matter how many times I look at that Wikipedia thing, I'm like, what is it? It's not explaining it accurately for me. I know one of them has to do with the orbit, and one has to do with the sun. Synodic is solar or something, but it not clicking yet. So yeah, I think sidereal basically means the entire quote 24 hours, and synodic would be the 24. I don't know. But anyway, its sidereal day is longer than its year, which is 224.7 Earth days. And here's an idea of how slow this planet rotates. The equator of Venus rotates at 4.05 miles per hour. That's about walking speed for your average human. Actually, that might be double walking speed. Maybe that's just me. So like a light jog or power walk, maybe. No, I don't remember. What's the average human's walking speed? Is it 2 miles an hour or 4 or 5? I can't remember. But basically, it's fucking slow. You could outrace Venus's rotation, basically. You could run around the planet before it makes a full rotation probably. Maybe. It depends on the amount of time. But that's fucking slow compared to Earth. Takes about... Earth's equatorial rotation is 1,040.4 miles per hour. That's a lot faster, a lot. The solar day is shorter than Mercury's at 116.75 Earth days, whereas Mercury's is 176 Earth days. 1 year equals 1.92 solar days. Due to its slow rotation, it has hardly any magnetic field, and even with the slow rotation, slow winds keep the heat evenly dispersed. So yeah, basically like I was reading earlier, there are very slow winds. Well, slow being a comparative term, since they're like 60% fat. But then you got to think of it this way. Earth's rotation at the equator is 1,044.4 miles per hour. So 10 to 20% winds. Let's do some math here. That's not what I wanted to click. All right, so let's bring up our calculator and get an idea of this. So if 1040.4 times 0.2, let's just do 20%, highest winds of Earth are 208.08 miles per hour. However, if we do 4.04 times 0.6, Venus's fastest winds are about 2.424 miles per hour. So yeah, that puts it into perspective. It's like Earth's winds only get up to 10 to 20% of its rotational speed, whereas Venus's are like 60% of its rotational speed. Its rotational speed is 4.0, actually 0.05, was it? Now, where was it? 4.05. Okay, let me fix that. 0.05. 2.43 miles per hour. Yeah, okay. That's pretty damn slow. That's like a light summer breeze. That's just funny as all hell. Alright. Yeah, let me double check that. Like, winds on Venus move at up to 60 times the speed of its rotation. Okay, so Earth's fastest wind are only 10 to 20% rotation speed, so we got that as, okay, so 4.5 let's see, that would be 60 times, so times 60. 243. Okay, that's better. That's way better. I was about to die. Like, seriously. Okay, so 60 times its rotational speed, so about 243 miles per hour, which is still only... God damn it, I didn't save it. All right, hit that, and then... So, 1040... Whoops. 1040, yeah. 40.4 times 0.2, 208.08. Okay, so it's slightly faster than Earth winds. Like slightly, by like 40 miles per hour or 32. But it puts into perspective. Venus's winds are only a little faster than ours, our highest winds. It's like hurricane speed, like Category 5. And a little higher than that. But it puts it in perspective. So it's about like, it's probably about a permanent hurricane on Venus, give or take. But anyway, God, that's such a slow rotation. So, but due to that, it has hardly any magnetic field, and even with the slow rotation. So even with the slow rotation, slow winds, and if we're calling 243 miles per hour slow, okay. But it probably has slower winds. It's probably not always that fast. So it keeps the heat evenly dispersed, as we explored earlier. So takeaway from that is Venus is fucking hot. And slow and damn near perfect spherical shape in both rotation and object and orbit. All right, so it is, like I said earlier, it is the brightest object in the night sky after the moon. And every 584 days, it overtakes the Earth and changes from an evening to a morning star. So someone that would be really good to explain Venus's morning evening star, Louise Eddington. She's very much into Venus. She's an astrologer I listen to for, she has a podcast called Weirdly Cosmic, that's what it is. She's the Cosmic Owl Astrology. She does podcast episodes on every new and full moon. She does them like the day after the previous moon. So if it's been a new moon, the day or so after, she'll do an episode on the upcoming full moon, like half a month out, and so on and so forth. She has a Venus enchantment or something membership that because she's really into Venus and she talks a lot about it. She's really good stuff. So if you are fascinated by Venus and really want to dive into the astrology, more so than what I'm going to do here, go check her out. She's really good. I know she's also got a YouTube channel that has a lot more videos on it. I have yet to actually go look at that because I'm not good at YouTube. I say as I'm on YouTube on a video. I'm not good at watching things on YouTube. I listen to podcasts. All right, so anyway, so that is the planet Venus. So basically, Venus is either a morning star or an evening star. And when we say that, it's because we can either see Venus in the morning before the sun rises, because it rises a little before the sun. But after so many days, it makes its way around, 584, it overtakes the Earth, and it goes from rising in the morning to you see it in the evening right after the sun sets, before it sets, and then you don't see it until the next night. And then it changes every few hundred days, basically. All right. But anyway, the myths associated with Venus. Venus is associated with Inanna in Sumerian myth. Sumerian myth, that's what it was. So Inanna's descent into the underworld corresponding with Venus's descent, air quotes, from evening to morning star, or morning to evening star. So basically the myth of Inanna is at one point she needed to go into the underworld to talk to her sister, and so she descended down, slowly shedding layers of her clothing until she was naked, and then she had to go through trials before she was able to rise again. So in Inanna and Shakaletuda is described as scanning the heavens for Inanna. From what I could get out of this, Shukaletuda is kind of the arch nemesis of Inanna, and so she was scanning the heavens for Inanna like you would scan for Venus. And Inanna makes several movements in the myth that correspond to Venus's movements while searching for her attackers. So Shukaletuda is basically arch nemesis or an enemy, basically attacks Inanna and she's scanning the skies, and Inanna makes movements that correspond to Venus's own movements in the sky while she's looking for her attacker. So in Chinese, Venus is called Jing, I believe. I believe that's how you pronounce it, but I'm sorry to any Chinese speakers out there. I probably butchered that horribly. I know I did. Which is the golden planet of the metal element. I have notes there. Okay, it literally means metal star in modern Chinese, Japanese, and Korean. Is the translation for Venus, the name of Venus in each of those languages. In India, Venus is Shukra Graha, or the planet of Shukra. Named after a saint, it means clear, pure, brightness, clearness, and is held to affect wealth, pleasure, and reproduction. Same as within Western. We might have stolen it from India. There's a lot of back and forth between that. The Maya considered it the most important after the sun and moon and named it the Great Star. Ancient Egyptians and Greeks thought that it was two stars, both a morning and an evening star, and they had names for it. In Egypt, it was the morning star was Tiaomotiri, and the evening star was Awiti. I think that I probably butchered that too. Doing my best here, I swear. And in Greek, the morning star was a phosphorus, or a light bringer, or Eosphorus, which means dawn bringer. So it was either light bringer or dawn bringer, so phosphorus or Eosphorus. And the evening star was Hesperus, which means the western one. By the Roman era, it was recognized. They realized it was one celestial object, not two. and it still took, and it was known as the Star of Venus by the Romans because it's Venus's star. But traditional names were still used, but they were usually translated to Latin, which were Lucifer, the light bringer, and Vesper, which I believe still means Western one. The symbol for Venus is the circle with the cross hanging below it, which is also the symbol for female. It's the symbol for... That symbol in particular is a symbol for female, the female sex, Venus, the planet, femininity, copper in Western alchemy, because copper is associated with Venus. Oh, yeah, that's the end of that. So, that's the myth of Venus, or some of the myths surrounding Venus. So, she's associated with... So, Venus, the planet, is associated with Venus, the Roman god. Aphrodite, the Greek god. Or, yeah, goddesses. God, goddess, whatever. I say my god with 2 D's. It's got double D's. Alright. Ishtar in Babylonian, Inanna in Sumerian, and the majority... Venus is usually, like, constantly throughout in different cultures of the world associated with a feminine love deity, or even possibly a masculine one. But constantly with love in particular. And morning and evening star. Alright, so the astrology of Venus is actually both a day and a night energy. So both a feminine and a masculine energy, quote unquote. Because it rules both Taurus, which is a night earth energy, and Venus is much more comfortable in Taurus. That's kind of her home sign. She also rules Libra, but while Venus enjoys being in Libra, it's not as homey as Taurus. Which kind of, I feel insulted by. I mean, I can only feel sort of insulted because Taurus is my moon sign, so I got double Venus rulership. However, Venus is also a personal planet. It's known as a personal planet. It rules kind of our love, our sense of beauty, our our more intimate, closer to 3D love type deals, like romance, sex, lust, familial to a degree. Basically our close loves, like our easy loves. It's not transcendental, all-encompassing, universal love. That is, I want to say Neptune? No. One of the larger planets. It's either Neptune or Uranus. No, Uranus is Mercury. It might be Neptune. I think it's Neptune. Is it Saturn? Maybe Saturn. Gosh darn it, I don't know what the higher octave of Venus planet is. But either way. Alright. So it's a personal planet, which means it moves fast enough that it's where it falls when in your birth chart and stuff is personal. It's part of your personality. It's how you love, how you enjoy things, what your sense of aesthetic is, how you act in romance and interpersonal relationships of all kinds, basically. Your friendships, yada, yada, yada. Due to its proximity to the sun, it's usually in the same sign or adjacent signs, just like Mercury is. So if you know where the sun is, you can probably get a pretty good idea of where Mercury and Venus are. It governs both the 2nd and the 7th houses. Alright, so the 2nd house is all about our money, our work, income, daily routines, our values, material possessions, priorities, habits, your job and work ethic. It's all about the stuff that's close to you, your material possessions and such. 7th house is about relationships, marriage, contracts, business partners, equality, sharing, interpersonal style. So it's about the very personal stuff and about the more expansive and about the interpersonal relationship stuff at the same time. All right, so 2nd and 7th houses is this ruler. It's known as the planet of love. It's sociability. It rules sociability, senses, value, possessions, personal finances, aesthetics, indulgence, inertia, and its worst sides. It can be inertia, overindulgence, and indecisiveness. It's very diplomatic and agreeable. It likes to keep the peace. It can be a mediator, but it can also be overcompromising. So Venus is just kind of your peaceful type, basically. Not as close to that as, like, say, Aphrodite, who was apparently a war goddess originally, or a war/love goddess. I mean, I could definitely see it. There's an interesting channel, I forgot what it's called, but it was explaining that, and I was like, ooh, that's fascinating. Alright, so anyway, so that is Venus. That's a lot of Venus. Alright, so moving into the plant and crystal, or stone. So the plant I chose for this was Iris. Because I was looking for just Venus-ruled stuff, and I go through my Scott Cunningham book, and it says Iris, and then I'm like, there's a couple of things. I really got into one of the specific ones, because that's the one that he's got, like Iris Florentina, except for then it's ISPP, which I guess means all the other many different types of irises, so I did more research than I needed to, basically. Alright, so the iris. Iris is a genus of about 260 to 300 species of flowering plants. That's a lot. The iris takes its name from, the Greek messenger and rainbow goddess. I wrote really small on this. The irises are found pretty much all across the northern hemisphere in temperate zones. It's predominantly in dry, sandy, semi-desert, or cool, or colder rocky mountains areas. Some of the other habitats that irises can be found in include grassy slopes, meadowlands, bogs, and riverbanks, so it's either dry and cold or it's wet and warm. So the rhizomes of Iris germanica, or the German iris, and Iris pallida, or sweet iris, are harvested and dried for about 5 years, and then they're traded as orris root. So orris root, if you find that in a shop, it's basically the rhizome of an iris plant. Usually those two, or the third one, which I'll talk about here in a bit, which was the specific one. Orris root is used in medicines and perfumes. So I'll read this one. The violet-scented rhizome so basically once it dries out enough, once it oxidizes everything, it starts smelling like violets, apparently. It has many uses, including a perfume, for mixing with hair powder, powder used for washing clothes, hair, and teeth, used as a fresh scent for linen, a base for dry shampoos, base for tooth powders and face packs, as a fixative and potpourri. Some of the other parts of it. It was used medicinally as an expectorant, a clearance of mucus from the airways, and a decongestant. It was also formerly used for treating wounds and chest infections. It was also administered for the cure of dropsy. It was also used sometimes for bronchitis, coughs, and sore throat, for colic, and for congestion of the liver. It is rarely used medicinally nowadays. It has been chewed as a breath freshener, carved into rosary beads, and given to babies as a teething aid. It is still used in cosmetics, perfumes, soaps, and sweets. Also, it is used for maturing Chianti wine and as an ingredient in Bombay Sapphire gin and a couple other gins, apparently. So, but anyway, so it's also the essential oil is used in aromatherapy as a sedative. The whole roots, as we read, are given to babies as a teething agent. Some gen production. All right. So the other thing about the medicinal quote part, unquote part of it, is it's actually the rhizomes contain terpenes and organic acids a lot. Um, it it can be toxic. For example, vomiting, diarrhea, skin irritation, but it's rarely fatal. But it's not a good thing to actually eat. So maybe it can be used under medical supervision. So talk to your doctor, please. Like all plants that we talk about here, yes, you can eat majority of them, but they're not all edible, and most of them, a lot of the time, they don't have as many uses as they say they do, because if we actually go digging into them, it's a lot of it is placebo effect, or we had nothing else at the time, so we're just going to say this. So Iris Florentina is the specific one that was in the Scott Cunningham book, and it's the one I went looking for, and it's very interesting. So Iris Florentina is now classified as Iris Germanica Nothovar Florentina. It's a white-flowered variety. So it's... Ugh, this is where we're bringing out the screenshots. All right. From Wikipedia. So, where'd it go? All right, so this is kind of an etymology of it. So it has the common names of Florentine iris, Florentine flag in the U.S., glaive lily, white German iris, and white flower de luca. Sometimes known as orris root, which also comes from rhizomes of Iris germanica and Iris pallida. The Irish called it commonly as la flambe blanche, the white torch of the garden. It is also known as Malta as... it's got a bunch of names. So it was first collected in Italy and then introduced to Northern Europe about 1500. Has been cultivated for centuries in Europe. First published and described by Carl Linnaeus in Systema Naturae, edition 10, issue 2, on page 863, as Iris Florentina. It was thought to be similar to Iris germanica, but with white flowers. In 1796, Iris officinalis salis whatever was published by Salis in Prader, but is later classed as Iris Florentina. In 1910, William Ricketson Dykes in the Gardener's Chronicle of September 17th, 1910, felt that Iris Florentina was not a wild species but had hybrid origin or form of Iris germanica. In his book The Iris in 1981, Brian Matthew reclassified the iris as Iris germanica florentina. This later became Iris germanica Nothovar Florentina, and it was verified by the United States Department of Agriculture and the Agricultural Research Service on 19th October 1994, then updated on 12th September 2005 as Iris germanica L. Nothovar Florentina Dykes. It is listed in the Encyclopedia of Life as Iris germanica variation Florentina. Iris Florentina is an accepted name by the RHS. It was given Award of Garden Merit in 1994. So basically, but however, as far as they can tell, or well, somewhere else I found it, well, earlier in this one or somewhere else, it's not only is it's mostly grown to produce orris root. First off, it basically, they believe it's a hybridization of Iris germanica, so the German iris. Quit running away from me. And Iris pallida, it's made from the rhizome of Iris florentina, Iris germanica, and Iris pallida. So, but however, we're looking at this, it's like they just started reclassifying Iris florentina because they're like, maybe it's actually apart from this and this. So sweet iris, German iris, and Florentine iris all combined may eventually come to this. Or something like that. So, yeah. It's quite the fun. It's mostly found in Italy, France, and the Mediterranean islands. It's been found in Algiers, where it is grown with Iris germanica near graves. Naturalized in many other countries from the Mediterranean. Grows in southwestern Siberia. Outside of Russia, is found in Kazakhstan, Mongolia, and China. and in many regions of the world, it's cultivated for commercial use. Sunny mountain slopes, naturalized around roadsides, field margins, olive groves, abandoned vineyards, and other cultivated sites. All right. So, anyway, a little bit more medicinally, well, like many other irises, most parts of the plants are poisonous, the rhizome and leaves, and if ingested can cause stomach pains and vomiting. Also, handling the plant may cause skin irritation or an allergic reaction. It was noted by G.R. Winter that allergic manifestations can be caused by the use of a dentifrice or teeth cleaner containing orris root powder. So, basically, orris root, not a good idea to ingest it at all. Like, there are better things to use as expectorants and decongestants. Go get Mucinex for heaven's sake. Like, just go get Mucinex. It's much better. It's not going to cause you to vomit on top of everything else. Nobody wants that. So that's the scientifically stuff. Magically, Scott Cunningham has it as being a feminine or a femme energy. It's ruled by Venus. It's associated with the element of water. The deities associated with are Iris and Juno, or Hera in Greek. And its uses are for purification and wisdom. Fresh flowers placed in an area to be cleansed. The 3 points of it symbolize faith, wisdom, and valor. And then moving on from Scott Cunningham, because he only had a little short blurb, because that's what he does, so Iris, the goddess, is the goddess she's kind of the personification of the rainbow. She is the rainbow, as well as the ruler of it. She also kind of is the connection between sea and sky. She rules communication, messages, and new endeavors. She's the link between heaven and earth. Her father was Thomas, a marine god. Mother was Electra, a cloud nymph. And yes, I'm saying Thomas, even though it's Thaumus. It just seems like Thomas as opposed to Thamus. Might be Thamus. So she's the daughter of a marine god and a cloud nymph. So that's a lot of water and air. She linked the gods to humanity, rules over mediumship or messages from the living to the dead. So she eventually, her role she kind of got pushed out of her role by Mercury eventually, but she wasn't. Whereas Mercury could be a messenger, Iris was specifically a messenger. Like, that was her whole role. She was the communication ray from humans to the gods, from humans to the dead. She was specifically just a messenger goddess for the most part. Whereas Mercury has a whole range of duties. And, you know, he stole most of them because he's a trickster god who likes lots of things. And you know what? He's cool enough. All right. In the language of flowers, Iris means hope, courage, truth, and or trust. It represents the universal sacred connection to spirit, and Iris means eye of heaven. So, uses communication, because especially with the dead, the Greeks used to plant iris flowers on the graves, to be able to communicate. So, a lot of communication, just because it's so strongly associated with the messenger goddess. It's known for being able to connect to the celestial realms, to heaven, to the gods, basically. So, Iris, definitely more communication, being able to draw in wisdom when you've got questions, you got prayers to send to the gods. It's like, so you send them on the petals of an iris flower and get an answer back, hopefully. Purification, I mean, sure. Scott Cunningham just throws a lot of purification at stuff, though. Alright, so that is the plant, and I gotta get a move on here. Alright, so our final section of this is Rhodochrosite, which is our stone for today. So rhodochrosite is a manganese carbonate mineral. Its scientific classification is MnCO3. So 1 manganese, 1 carbon, 3 oxygen, basically, molecules. The pure form of rhodochrosite is typically rose red in color. Some other more less pure forms can be shades of pink to brown. When it's run across, there's a specific way they do the whole streaking thing where they run a stone across a board of some kind. So when it does that, it streaks white. The Mohs hardness varies between a 3.5 and a 4. Its specific gravity is between a 3.5 and a 3.7. And rhodochrosite, the name itself derives from a Greek word which means rose-colored. I don't know what that Greek word was because they wrote it in Greek and they didn't give me an English thing, and I don't know Greek, so yeah. Rhodochrosite crystallizes in a trigonal system, so basically in 3 blocks, I believe it is. It cleaves with a rhombohedral carbonate cleavage in 3 directions. So basically, you think a rhombus, it's one of those rectangles that's kinked to the side, like one side's farther than the other. It's kind of, so its cleavage, which is basically it's split, where it's is in 3 parts along that rhombus type deal. It also has crystal twinning happening pretty often, which is basically where 2 different crystals grow parallel to each other and pretty much connected, but they're not. It's kind of cool. It's transparent to translucent. It's often confused with rhodonite, but distinctly softer. Only if you feel stones for a living. So it forms a composite solid solution series with iron carbonate. I'm not 100% sure what that means. Or siderite. Calcium and magnesium and zinc to eliminate stent frequently substitute for manganese in the structure, leading to lighter shades of red and pink, which is why it's often seen as pink. It occurs as a hydrothermal vein mineral in low temperatures, relatively low, I'm assuming, considering it's a hydrothermal. It's mainly used as an ore of manganese, which is a key component of stainless steel and certain aluminum alloys. Quality banded specimens are used in jewelry, but due to the softness and perfect cleavage of it, it's very difficult to cut and rarely used in faceted jewelry. So you'll mostly find it tumbled, basically, in jewelry. It's Argentina's national gemstone, which is kind of cool. So rhodochrosite represents selfless love and compassion. It teaches the heart to assimilate without shutting down and removes denial. It gently brings painful and repressed feelings to the surface to be acknowledged and dissipated through emotional release. It's mentally stimulating. What did I write there? Emanating. I don't know. I don't know what the hell I wrote there, but basically it gives them positivity. It encourages a positive attitude and links to the higher mind. So rhodochrosite is very good. Basically, the gist of what I got is it's good for love and all that, but it's also especially good for bringing up the hard stuff in a way that's gentle, that you can actually work through and clear it out with a lot more ease than just here's all your shit, boom, slam it on the table in front of you, work through it. Rhodochrosite is like, oh, here's another paper. Maybe you should do this little questionnaire thing here. Oh, you're done with that? Have you looked at this one over here? This little problem? Maybe you should. How do you feel about looking at that type deal? It's very gentle, but it helps dig up your shit, but in a very slow, gentle, easy processing way. It makes the processing of the shit a lot easier, basically, which I'm sure a lot of people could use. That's a lot nicer. I mean, I could probably benefit from that occasionally, but I'm one of those people that likes to get smacked in the face with the pile of shit. So that's me, but not everybody likes that. Some people need their stuff to come up in a lot gentler way. It did mention in Judy Hall's Crystal Bible is where I got most of this info from. She does mention that it's good for helping you find your soulmate, but the soulmate you'll find is, she's like, soulmates are usually those that help us bring up shit to help us grow. So it's like, so not what most people think when they think soulmate. So another one of those that'll bring people into your life that will help you grow and deal with shit. So Rhodochrosite is very much the gentle shit slinger. Or something like that. Alright, so we're doing pretty good, but I gotta get out of here because my time's almost up, and that's everything I had on this. So I hope you all enjoyed this lovely exploration of Venus and a few other things. Next week, well, actually, okay, so when is this coming out? I believe it should be coming up this, by the time you're seeing this, it should be 19. Yeah. Christmas coming up. So, and Yule. So, yay. Yule, solstice, and Christmas. Cool. 3 in a row. I celebrate all of them. Sort of. Ish. I at least recognize all of them. Alright, but anyway, I hope this massive winter holidays is good. And next week, which will be the day after Christmas, which, ugh. That's going to be fling out. The next one will be up, which we'll be talking about the devil, which is... Oh, that's hilarious. I find it funny. If you don't, oh well, but I do. It's hilarious to me. And then the next time I see you after that will be the new year, so woohoo. But we got one more episode before the end of the year, so... Don't die during the holiday season. I know it's tough, but we can all get through this. And if you're one of those that's like, what are you talking about? The holiday season's great. Cool. Same. I get days off and I get paid for them, and it's awesome because it wasn't supposed to be that way, but my boss convinced our office otherwise, and yes! Well, one of them's a half day, but better than a full day. Alright, but anyway... It'll be epic. I get 3-day weekends, or 2.5-day weekends as well. Alright, so y'all have a great rest of your whatever, and we will see you next week with episode 50. We're finishing out this year on an even number. It's gonna be epic. Alright, we will see y'all later. Bye.